Bald and Blonde. Welcome to the Mindset Evolution podcast. The podcast to get tools for a powerful mind you can use immediately every day. Get tips, tricks, skills, and inspiration to create what you desire and achieve a content life wherever you are. And here are your hosts, Kathy Tate and Daisy Pup.
And hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Bald and Blonde Mindset Evolution, the podcast that gives you tools for a powerful mind. I'm Kathy Tate, your host from Australia. With me, as always, is your host from America, Daisy Pap. Hi, Daisy.
Hello, my dear, there in Australia. Good to see you, good to hear you, and I'm very much looking forward to recording yet another episode with you. What are we going to record?
Oh, Daisy, I've got a juicy one today.
Bring it on.
So today we're going to talk about greed.
Well, it's juicy, I agree, and let's talk about greed then. Okay, you want to define it first?
Okay, sure. All right, I haven't looked it up. I'm winging this. So I would say that greed is when you want more than your fair share and it is to the detriment of others. That's what I'm going with.
Mm-hmm.
I know there's probably all sorts of problems with that definition.
Let me have a look at it, actually. I want to look it up, what it says in the dictionary. An excessive desire to acquire or possess more than what one needs or deserves, especially with respect to material wealth.
Oh, it's close.
Yes, there are other definitions, but that is the one that we speak about when we talk about this attitude of greed. Isn't greed also an attitude? I wonder.
Well, it did flow very nicely from last week's episode on attitude that we did, doesn't it, Daisy? Make sure you check that out, guys, if you haven't yet. It was a really good conversation about your attitude, my attitude, everybody's attitude.
Yeah, well, greed. I think it is interesting to have a look at a different aspect when we speak about greed, and not only that I'm going to accumulate more than I need, and I want a better cat than you have. I want a taller bush than you have. I want more coconuts than you have. So there's also that competitive part to it, I think. Maybe not directly, but indirectly. I think what's worthwhile looking at is that greed comes from a point of thinking or a standpoint or viewpoint, I think, that there's not enough. And based on that not enoughness, I'm trying to accumulate more and more. When I'm in the flow, and I give you a very simple example, your breath. You're breathing in and then you exhale. You inhale and you exhale. You're not afraid. Okay, so now when it comes to breaths, you're not trying to hoard your breaths. It's a natural flow. You inhale and you exhale. You inhale and you exhale. And I truly believe that is a way of life that is very much natural. Okay, I get some money and now I spend it. And then I get some money and then I spend it. So when there's a natural flow in there, then the greed becomes obsolete, does not it?
I think that the breathing is a really great analogy, because I think that, let's just run with that and say, if you had a panic attack, for instance, I believe your breathing patterns change quite radically. And then the act of calming yourself down using breathing techniques is sort of a similar thing, I think. You think about greed coming from a lack mindset, which you were speaking about, this not enough. I think that you're right when you say it comes back to attitude, because where does that lack mindset come from? It comes from some fear of running out, of being poor, of having nothing, or being uncomfortable to a degree that they don't want. I mean, this lack attitude comes from somewhere, right?
There can be many reasons and a combination of reasons where it comes from. I think it very much ties into the invisible assets as well. But let's speak about, let's say, I'm having 2 chocolate bars and I'm not going to give you any of it. That's also a sign of greed. I don't want to share it with you. There are many people who have a lot they could share, but they don't. Where does it come from? Because when I give it to you, then you can have what I have. They forget that many people can have what they have, but no one can be who they are. Meaning you can have what many can have, and many can have what you have, but no one can be who you are.
What I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is this sort of misalignment within oneself where they're focusing on what they have or what they don't have or what they're scared of not having, which creates this greed, when in fact, if they focused on who they are instead, there wouldn't be this misalignment. It would kind of remove the need for greed.
Well, I'm not sure if we can generalize it this way. For example, when someone endured wars, they have seen what you and I have not. And luckily, we have not. And I feel very sorry for those who have seen and have been involved and victimized by wars, sceneries, or because they were deployed to combat. But let's say Second World War. So many people lost not only their families, which is horrifying and terrible, but they lost everything they had. Everything their families worked for centuries for was no longer there. Now, that human being, when they grow up, they may have a different attitude to collecting and to acquiring and to accumulating than someone who grew up in relative abundance, where things were available. So I think it is important that we understand the individual perception of. I'm not judging greed. Do I like it? No, but I'm not judging it as, oh, this is so bad. I'd like to know more about it. What is it that drives you? What is it that makes you believe that there's not enough? Or what is it that you believe is bad when your neighbor, with your help, can also have a nice home and not only you?
I think there's a line here that you've skipped over in that you're speaking about somebody who maybe has lost everything in the past because of things out of their control, which is certainly understandable, and then wanting to build that back. I don't see that as greed. I don't think they've crossed that line where it's more than they need or deserve. For me, that's the line that makes it greed, and not just wanting the best for yourself and your family. I don't think that's greed. I think that's just wanting to be prosperous and successful. I think this line that has to be drawn in the sand is in that definition where it's more than I need or deserve is what it said, because I wrote it down. And so would you not agree that it doesn't become greed until it crosses that line?
Well, I wonder, where does it start? Because let's face it, I mean, my refrigerator is filled with more things that I currently at this very moment need. So does that make me a greedy human? So where does it start and where does it end?
Yeah, it definitely, there's a lot of subjectiveness in here. I do agree with that. And perhaps that comes back to the individual and what it is they need to feel that safety point, or that I have enough point, where they don't feel this urge to be greedy or hoard or get more than, inverted commas, is their share.
Well, I wonder who is the one who's judging more than they deserve? Who's the one who determines that? Who am I to know they deserve or they don't deserve? Have I been there? Have I looked through their eyes? Did I walk in their shoes? Most likely I did not. Now, I give you another example. I have 2 feet. I'm lucky. I have 2 healthy feet, and I have more shoes than I can wear with my 2 feet at one time. Question, is that already now greed because I accumulated more shoes, but one is for walking, the next one is for dancing, the other one is for sunbathing, or when I take a trip to the beach, and then I may have hiking shoes, or maybe I have some high heels for special occasions. So the question is, where does it start? Is it not rather than, okay, I have what I have. It doesn't make me arrogant. I'm not showing off, look, because I have 2 more shoes than you have, or 2 more pair of jeans than you have. Again, it goes back to attitude, I think. And then is it not that greed starts when I see you have 0 shoes and I have plenty, although I only have 2 feet, which is plenty for me. I sometimes even can step over my 2 feet and fall or misstep. Imagine I had more than 2 feet. And if I'm not giving you or sharing with you or helping you to acquire shoes as well. The question is, where does greed start? And what does the majority of the population consider greedy?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because this is going to be relative to your circumstances. And somebody living on the other side of the world, let's say in Egypt, is going to have a very different type of standard than what you would have there in America, or I perhaps would have here in Australia, because it is impacted locally, so to speak, in our cultures to where we've established ourselves, what kind of society we live in. And I guess the wealth of that society certainly makes a difference to this standard that I guess we've said needs to be there to say, well, how do you know if you have more than you need or deserve? I would like to think that this is something that we can assess inside ourselves and honestly go, I don't need any more than this. I'm going to share my excess wealth. Unfortunately, that's not how I see people with excess wealth behaving. So perhaps that's a bit of a wish on my behalf. But I would like to think, because I also believe in the best of humanity, that this is something we can internally decide for ourselves. And I think that it needs to be part of our self-inventory. Am I being greedy? Do I have more than I need? Is what my neighbours have the best of and the newest of really that important to my life? Is it going to change it? What are the things that are super important to me? And is it these material things that I keep accumulating? Because perhaps it's hiding something else going on.
Well, I think it's beautiful to see financially successful humans. I'm very joyful to see how they succeed. And sometimes the stories behind are just absolutely stunning, because oftentimes we just see the end result. We don't see what happened by the time they got there. So then again, who am I to judge? But I can ask questions. Now, I think it is really an individual and very subjective task to look at what I have, and do I want to share more and more often? And that is something only I can decide for myself and how it feels for me. I've seen a very interesting experiment they recorded on video. There was a man at a shopping mall, and he was there in one of these big grocery stores. And he was given either $100 for himself, or he would receive $500 to give away to 5 individuals. And he chose the $500 to give away to 5 individuals, which was amazing. They went after him with a camera and they recorded it. It was very, very nicely done, very humane. And at the end of the experiment, they asked, why did you choose not the $100 for you, but $500 to give away? And he said, well, I know how hardship feels, and I wanted to help others with that they have less hardship. Now, at the end, he was given $500 for himself, and he broke down and started crying, and he said, thank you, miracles do exist. I now am capable of paying my rent. He was a veteran. So you see, he noticed, maybe consciously or unconsciously or instinctively or emotionally, that giving 5 times more away than he could receive one time, so the $100 compared to the $500 to give away, was having a greater impact. What a beautiful soul. Great experiment.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's the kind of thing that makes me really believe in humanity.
Me too.
Right there.
Yeah, me too. Beautiful. And yes, sometimes I think it is a good idea. Go through your closet and have a look at your bookshelf. And what is it that, do you really need that? Or maybe is there someone who I can bring joy with it? Now, if it is something that is a dust collector, so some object that is really dear to you, but maybe others would not really enjoy having it, then keep it. And if it's something really dear to you because you bought it and you acquired it and it's important to you, everyone has the right to have these things. Nothing wrong about it. I think it is a good idea to have a look at the judgments and how fast are we judging? Oh, he's just so greedy. She's just so greedy. When we look at animals, dogs especially, I've seen it. I've had dogs in the past, and sometimes they had this typical dog food greed, as if there was not enough. One dog then had the idea, I'm thirsty, so went to the water bowl, and all of a sudden, the other dog was thirsty. I'm wondering if that's truly biologically happening, or, now I want it too. You can also see it with children when they start playing with one another. There's this little fire truck and nobody looked at it. No one cared for it. And then this one child picks it up and look, oh, now I'm playing with this. And all of a sudden, everyone wants to have that fire truck. So the question is not it more precious then to find joy when others can have what they do enjoy having. And then let's say you got the fire truck and I so would like to play with that fire truck. May I then become the questioner, the asking human, and ask you, look, I see that you're really enjoying that fire truck. Can I have it for a little bit? I'd like to enjoy it as well. I'd really appreciate it. And then let's see how you respond. But at least I did not leave myself hanging. I at least asked the question. I opened the doors for receiving a yes. Because when I don't ask, I'm totally depending on your kindness. If you may see that, maybe Daisy would like to play with a fire truck as well, or not. I'm totally depending on your current mood, your attitude, your giving capabilities, your sharing capabilities.
I think the most interesting thing that you've just said, well, it was all interesting, don't get me wrong. But
thank you.
What grabbed me is this realization that it does seem to be like an inner default setting where we instinctively want what other people have. Now, is that because we want to belong? Is that because we don't want to miss out? It's got to be something that comes from our reptilian brain because it is such an instinct, I think. So what do you think? Where does that come from?
I do not see it coming or being related to the reptilian brain because that's truly all about survival. That's not about hoarding or I want what you have because I don't have it yet.
Well, yes, but maybe it came from being part of a tribe and you had to be part of a tribe to survive. Like maybe that instinctual, I want to be included.
But that doesn't require me having what you have. I think when we go back like 200 years, I'm not a historian, but I'm curious. And when we look back, or when I look back like 200 years ago, where there was no marketing industry, advertisement campaigns, about this, that, and the other, I think it was more astonishing as an experience to see, oh, look, what a beautiful horse John has. What a beautiful dress Kathy has. And then maybe I felt inspired. Oh, I would like to have a dress like yours.
So what you're saying, if I'm hearing it correctly, is that modern day marketing makes us greedier.
I think that might be true. Now, when we go back in history, though, and we're not speaking about the regular population, but let's have a look at the emperors. Competition there was, oh, now I need to have that too. They just built a new ship and now I need to build a bigger ship. That was already there. And again, it's not directly greed, but it's very close, is not it?
Yeah, and you know what that makes me think of? That makes me think of two wolf packs. And wolf wanting to be the leader and the best and the biggest and the strongest or whatever. If you put that onto mankind and emperors, it's like they're trying to outdo each other. Well, I kind of do think that's greed, but when you look at it from the wolf pack point of view, is that not a survival mechanism? Because somebody needs to be the leader and keep the pack safe. So you need to be the biggest and the meanest and the strongest.
Well, if it just would keep them safe, I mean the pack. when I look at humans now and I look around, and I'm not talking about emperors, but leaders or so-called. So I'm having my second thoughts there.
Accumulating wealth years and years ago certainly kept people safer.
Yes, still does. Still does today.
Not a historian, don't know a heap about history, but what I do know shows that it was a lot less safe than it is nowadays to just be in the world. Like, nuts really when you hear some of the stories. It's amazing humanity's survived it all, to be honest.
Well, yeah, I think there always were threats in different eras, different threats, and we have overcome many, and we're facing very dangerous threats now. Very. Now, greed, again, I think it is a good idea to accumulate so I can feel safe. It is a good idea to also share. It is a good idea to build societies where people can thrive and the members of the societies care. And when we start focusing on, I'm so glad Joey just got a new car. Did you see that thing? It does this, it does that, and wow, and the back camera and the rear view mirrors, and look at this feature. It's amazing. Attitude question. I can be so happy for Joey, and I can think, I would like to have a car like that without being envious. So I think that will be the natural thing. I don't think that it is possible, at least not in the near future, that really equality will take place around the globe due to too many intertwinings, the history and other things playing a role here. And I don't think it belongs into the podcast, into our podcast episodes. When we can inspire others to share and maybe inspire within them the joy of sharing and giving knowledge, sharing knowledge, that's what we are doing. I mean, we're so generous sharing so many things that I know not even 5% of some of our episodes are given in a 3-day workshop where people pay thousands of dollars for. So now, am I greedy with knowledge because I accumulate more than I actually need? It's just another question. Where does it start and where does it end?
Well, on that note, I would say you're the opposite of greedy because you're freely sharing so much of your knowledge with the world through our podcast. I think that's whatever the opposite of greed is, it's what that is. Generosity.
Yeah, I think we share generously. Thank you for acknowledging that. And now the question is, I'm so hungry for knowledge, so am I greedy then?
Well, yeah, I think that's when it's one of those inner barometers, that we have for ourselves. And I want to reiterate, I agree with your other point, but that it's okay to accumulate for yourself. I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. I think my line is very firmly placed where it becomes to the detriment of others.
There you go. Exactly.
That's where my line is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally agreed. Yeah. Yes. And I'm glad you pointed it out. Because now when I do it, because I don't want you to have it, now that is already attitude question, right? So I believe I must get it because otherwise I'm less or lesser off than you. Goes back to my inner world. What is it that I'm holding within me most of the time against me? Let's face it.
And what a great place to end the episode with that question, guys. Have you done your self-inventory lately? We do talk about it a lot and we encourage you to do that. And if you want a hand, come along to one of our workshops. Please go and visit us at boldandblonde.live. There's a special place where you can support us. We'd very much appreciate that. Helps us stay ad-free and keeps allowing us to produce these high-quality episodes that share our knowledge and hopefully inspire you. That's it from us today. We'll talk to you again soon with another juicy episode. We are Bold and Blonde.
Mindset Evolution. Talk to you next time. Thank you for listening in to the Bold and Blonde Mindset Evolution podcast. Please share our podcast with your family and friends. Together, we make this world a better place. For you, for us, for future generations. Visit us at baldandblonde.live to get freebies, give feedback, and even support us with as little as $1. Talk to you soon.